Hello, everyone. My name is Mark from the Misplay Podcast, and you're listening to EternalJourney, everyone's favorite Eternal podcast.
Welcome to EternalJourney, the podcast.
Greetings, all my knights and Panawans. You are listening to EternalJourney, the podcast that talks about all things Eternal with a focus on limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and this is episode 103 of this podcast where we are going to be talking about Stormbreak. That's right, the latest campaign mini set, mini bundle, however you want to call it, that was released March 2021. It's out. We're playing with the cards. We're play testing. So we are going to bring on our resident brewer expert, Johnholio, as well as teammate Stormguard. I guess I might as well just go ahead and lead you guys into it. So, John, welcome on the show.
Yo, what's going on, guys? You said hype.
Hello. You said hype? Yeah, a ton of brewing going on, which is super exciting. I talked to you yesterday. You were like, I'm brewing out of my mind.
Someone stop me.
All right, and like I mentioned, teammate that recently made a top 4 of the Tuesday Night Eternal Invitational. You can check them out in a more in-depth review in the misplay breakdown of the Invitational. Welcome on the show, fellow teammate Stormguard. What's up, buddy?
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Happy to have you, my friend. We wanted to get you on last week's show, but I understand you had things going on and, didn't want to dive too deep into another person's or another show, so it's all good. And then, of course, sitting across from them on the internet, good friend, limited expert, Darth_Herman 2. What's up, friend?
What's up, guys? Couldn't think of a better place to be than with you guys.
All right.
You're so sweet. Oh, my goodness. Don't worry. I got something for you this show. All right, a little bit of housekeeping real quick. Want to give a big thank you to all the great supporters that subscribe to the Twitch channel. Really appreciate you guys, the ones keeping the lights on, paying for the hosting fees for this podcast, as well as other great things. So thank you guys so much. A couple of milestones this week. Try and kill me hitting that sweet 12-month. Hitting that 1 year, that's amazing, man. Time flies by. I can't believe it. And then Scarlet Harlot coming in with the 6 months, halfway there, earning their Darth Maul lightsaber. A lot of fun. And of course, a ton of subs coming in. You guys are fantastic. Thank you, each and every one of you. Speaking of Twitch, I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, which may or may not change based on I picked up another job. So we'll see how that plays out. But right now, catch me out there. 4 days a week, streaming limited and a little bit of constructed. Probably see a little more constructed going on now that I'll be streaming my tournament runs, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then finally, if you can't catch us live, check us out, EternalJourney on YouTube. Find the video versions of this podcast, which is a good one to catch this week's show because you can see the cards on screen for you. But that's it. One last thing. I want to go ahead and say this out first before I forget. We're recording this the week of the 25th of March, which means this weekend, i.e. tomorrow, is the first open of the competitive season, OP Hype.
Yes.
So that's super exciting. Definitely check that out if you guys remember. If you have made Masters last month, you will have a, what's the thing called again? John, Alex?
A medallion.
Medallion?
Supposedly you have a medallion.
Yeah, so make sure you can use that to earn yourself 2 buys. Let's see. Let me go ahead and bring that up and discuss it real quick. I'll bring it up on screen. So beginning tomorrow, Friday, March 26th at 10 a.m. MTD and running until Sunday, March 28th, all participants will receive 4 alternate copies of Moment of Creation. Oh, wow. Yeah. I know Gato Sujo's got to be excited about that card. Anyone else, John? Is that a pet card of yours or no?
Nah, I mean, I'll be happy to have some because I don't think I've crafted a playset, so.
Mm-hmm.
But no, not a pet card or anything. But yeah, I know Gato Sujo, definitely pet card for him.
Yep, so let me see where I could do it here. I guess I'll just read the qualifiers, I guess. Stormbreak 5K Open, we'll use the throne format for this one. I think they're going to be alternating in quarters, so 1 month throne, 1 month expedition, 1 month draft hype. All players on Steam, Xbox, and iOS or Android phones and tablets can participate. Qualifiers begin on Friday, March 26th at 10 a.m. MTD. We'll close sharply on Saturday, March 27th at 4 p.m. MTD. So make sure you get in your games during that time frame, which normally should be a decent amount, but I know some people have some difficulty at work and whatnot. No one may enter the tournament or start a new game after 4 p.m. MTD. Games in progress may be completed until 4:30 MTD, at which time all scores will be final. Players can complete their games at any time during the qualifiers. There is no benefit or penalty for playing early, late, or throughout. John, do we want to talk about that whole like tiebreaker thing or not really?
No,
since we don't have
on a prior episode, but it does sound like this is exactly the same as a prior ECQ format, right?
Yeah. So real quick, just to lightly touch on that, when you play against a person, it boils down to tiebreakers. The score you get, or the tiebreaker points, or whatever you want to call it, you get from the person you won or lost is based on their record when you play them. So if you play them and they're 2-0, even if they finish like 18 and 4 or whatever, it's still going to give you the points based on 2-0, not what they finished. So just take that for what it's worth for the more number crunching competitive players.
Yeah, like I always did my runs near the end, and my tiebreakers have always been pretty good, I think, as a result.
Yeah, and that's pretty much just for the people that are kind of getting in close, right? When they're, let's say the cutoff is X and 8, so to speak, right? And then you have 25 X and 8. That's when the tiebreakers come into play, when you know, hey, am I like the number 2 X and 8, or am I the number 15 X and 8? Mm-hmm. So take that for what it's worth, guys. I know a lot of players are a lot of players are either way above that or way below that, but you know, it's something to consider for people like me that I normally am one away from either in or out. So bring your best thrown deck for 28 games, win or lose, in a battle to make the top 64. You may only enter once, and you may not switch decks in between games. The top 64 players from the qualifiers will progress forward to the finals. Entry cost is 1,800 gems or 35,000 gold to enter. So I believe that is still a pretty steep cost with gold, right? Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, it's 10,000 more than like a campaign cost as far as the gold.
Yeah, so
I think it's a very reasonable amount for like the rewards and stuff you get, and like there's potential actual cash on the line, so, and a world's invite, like, and gold is free. So
I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking anyone. I just draft a lot, so my gold is normally not that high. So instead of grinding, I just spend the gems. Like, it's the one thing I spend the gems on is you
get a little better value if you spend gems instead of gold, as far as like the, you know, that ratio.
But hey, if you got time to grind it, by all means, I'm not faulting free to play players at all. All right, moving right along, because I do want to get to the goods. The finals begin promptly at 11 a.m. MTD on Sunday, March 28th. I do encourage everyone that if you can to tune in and watch, even just lurk, because of course I'm sure that's one of the algorithms or numbers or statistics that Direwolf pays attention to. And you know, when we get more and more people supporting these events, it will encourage them to invest more time and money into it. So for what it's worth, I guess. Qualifying players must be online and ready to play when the finals begin. You will receive an in-game prompt to join your first game when the finals begin. The finals are open to only the top 64 players from the qualifiers. Final matches are best of 3 games, single elimination, played with the same constructed deck used in the qualifiers. There will be a short delay between the last active game in a round and the start of the next round. All games must finish before the next round can start, so watch the bracket view. When it is time to play, you will receive an invitation to join your next game. All finalist deck list will be published prior to the finals beginning, and they normally do that the morning of, I believe, if I remember. It's like 2 hours before start time or something like that. It has varied
from like an hour after the, you know, day 1 closes to like that, like an hour before day 2 starts, like, and everywhere in between. In my experience, they're not very consistent with that.
Fair enough,
but hopefully sooner than later.
And then important prizes. Prizes will be delivered upon conclusion of the finals. This includes the people that didn't make the finals. So if it's your first competitive event, you didn't quite make the finals, you will not receive your rewards. Even if you didn't make day 2, even though your tournament's done, it won't dish out the rewards till the end of the finals on Sunday. So just keep that in mind. You know, no need even to panic or whatnot if this is your first event. All packs are from Empire of Glass. All players will receive 4 alternate art copies of Moment of Creation just for playing. Woot woot. Players with the Masters, there you go. Players with the Masters Medallion will also receive 4 premium alternate art copies of, wait, what? Oh, premium. Okay, that's the difference. Gotcha. All right, leaderboard rewards. All right, so the actual leaderboard, period. First place is $1,500 plus the Invitational to Worlds and 32 packs. Second place is $1,000 with 25 packs. Third and fourth is $650 and 20 packs, and fifth and eighth is 300 packs. And then just for showing up to day 2, you get an additional 4 packs of Empire Glass. Now, for everyone that's competing in the qualifiers, just for showing up 0 to 1 win, or X and 1, you get 22 packs of Empire of Glass. And then if you finish 15 through 28, or I'm sorry, wins. If you get 15 or 28 wins, so 15 is kind of like your cutoff for the highest, you get 40 packs of Empire of Glass. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can catch it live on Twitch, of course, on the Direwolf digital channel on Sunday. And then I will be streaming my run on Saturday. And who knows, maybe we get lucky and Johnholio will do a super secret Discord stream at some point. But that is that. Let's go ahead and move on to our main topic, which is the Stormbreak. There we go. Stormbreak bundle, which is the mini campaign that was just released. A couple of quick things. You do get, if you order the full shebang, you get like the avatar, you get alternate art, dark return, and there's no longer pre-release. But long story short, I do encourage you guys, if you are going to pick this up, and you can, just do it directly from the Direwolf website, as you get additional bonuses. They take the cut that would have gone to, for example, like iTunes or Apple, whatever it is, or Steam, and they just directly add that bonus to you. So if you purchase it in-game, it is going to be 25,000 gold. And then, or 1,000 gems for the basic one, and it's 2,000 gems for the premium one. So you get all the shebang that we mentioned. You guys could check it out on Cassandra's YouTube channel. He did a YouTube channel or video breaking down the entire bundle, so you could check it out there if you actually want to see it. But it's the usual, you get 4 copies of all the cards, both in standard and premium, as well as the avatar and whatnot. If you purchase it through the Direwolf store, you will get an additional 500 gems and an extra draft ticket. And even for you people that don't draft, you can just sit there, click it, and rare draft and get yourself a bunch of shift stone. So yep, that's pretty much it. Just wanted to throw that out there for you guys. There is a preview event, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm pretty sure everyone's just gonna be busy playing the event for the most part. But okay, that is it. So without further ado, are you guys ready to dive into this?
You know it.
Absolutely. Let's get this rolling.
All right, Alex, I know normally you don't have too much input on these constructed brews, but I am going to have a little game for you. So what I'm going to do throughout this one, I'm not going to see what your constructed prowess is. I'm going to actually see how your rating of Johnholio is. So what we're going to do is I'm going to name off this card, and then you're going to tell me if you think John is high or low on this card, and we're going to see how accurate you are by the end of this, all right?
All right.
I would have you do Stormguard, but I don't think we've interacted with Stormguard enough for you to get good beats. So we'll see if you got the Johnholio hype or not.
Right on.
All right, so if you guys want to follow along at home, we're going to start with pretty much the same order that it is in game. I have it up on screen as well if you guys once again want to check it up on YouTube. So we're going to be starting with fire and then finishing with our multi-faction cards, I believe, or factionless. I'm sorry, factionless. All right, so first up we have Grenadin Uprising. This is a relic for 2 fire. Once per turn, you may pay 3 to play a 1 or 2/1 Grenadin with charge that dies at the end of the turn. Excuse me, when one of your other units with more attack dies, set this ability to that attack. So once again, once per turn, you can pay 3, you get a 2/1 Grenadin. It's not rustling, so it does not have decay. It does have charge though. And then at the end of the turn, regardless of whether it attacks or not, it gets destroyed, which could trigger entomb effects on other, it won't trigger Truma itself, but the other thing is it has to when one of your other units dies. So for example, if you have a 3/3 that ends up dying while this relic is in play, then this will get bumped up to create a Grenadin that's a 3/1 instead. If you have a 5/5 that dies, the Grenadin will be a 5/1, etc., etc. Okay, Alex, first up, man, you're up to bat. Is John going to be high or low on this card?
Can he be medium on the card? Low.
John, are we got all right.
We'll
All
say
right, we're
low.
going with the low. All right, I like it. All right, low. So I'm going to sweat you a little bit. Let's start with our guest, Stormguard. Where are you at on Grenadin Uprising?
Okay, so I think the card is powerful but narrow, and when for starters, I don't think it's going to make any waves in Throne. I just think there's way too much relic removal there. Being in fire, you don't have a lot of good ways to protect your relic removal. So protect your like face relics. So more often than not, this is going to die without doing it. Having said that, this being a 2-cost relic in Grenadin specifically, it could come up a lot in Expedition. I played a Menace Grenadin's list at the last TNT Expedition tournament, and I think this slots perfectly into the market, especially if you also plan on playing stuff like Scrap Tanks in your deck, because as we know, Scrap Tanks get really, really out of control very, very quickly, and this could a relic like this could help spit out massive charging attackers every single turn. Having said that, it is 2 costs do nothing plus an additional 3 every single turn just to make a Grenadin. So unless you have specific tribal synergies or like sacrifice synergies alongside it, I don't think you'll end up playing this card.
All right, for the record, because Gear Cruncher is my boy, I think it goes real good with Gear Hulk. Gear Hulk cares how many. I'm joking. Gear Cruncher cares about how many Grenadins are in your void when it comes to the play. It creates that many Grenadins, so that's something that this kind of synergizes well with as well. So that's weird. Whatever. English hard. Anywho, John.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That was a very good breakdown by Storm. I don't actually have a ton to add here. I'd say I'm on the low side. So I think Alex got this one right. I do have I haven't really gotten to brew with this yet, and it's because like just glancing at it, I feel like it's a little too low power level, especially for Throne, which is the tournament we talked about, and so most of my brewing's been with Throne in mind. So yeah, and I basically agree. There's only one application that I'm like wanting to mess with this card that wasn't mentioned, and that's like Sling. You can like pay 3 and spit out a thing that can kill something like a sling unit or whatever, like a 6/1 Grenadin or whatever. When one of your sling units dies, it powers up the relic kind of thing. So I'm interested to mess with that, but that's like I don't think that's a good like a good play or anything, but it's cheeky and I want to do it. So, but yeah, no, I'm low on it.
The unfortunate thing is it does say at the end of the turn, so it doesn't even help facilitate tribute.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, it gives you a body for 3 though, which I feel like Grenadin, like that's a little it's kind of safe, right? Like Grenadin has another it has like the combustion cell that, like, I think that's why it costs 3 more than anything, right? Because if it was 2, it'd be the same cost as combustion as like the mana you get back. So it'd be like a free refund or whatever. So I feel like that's why it costs so much to activate. I don't know. It's and like Storm mentioned, just the Relicate in general right now, and then just I think Expedition in particular. Send an agent just kills this relic, which if this is a key part of your game plan, like he said, it's kind of hard to protect in fire in particular, and whatever. It's a kind of it's a cheeky, fun card, but I don't think it's ultimately very good.
All right, moving along, we have Keen Trike Officer. I'm joking. All right, I'm sorry, I tried. Eccentric Officer is a 2/2 Valkyrie for 4 fire. Decay. Summon, randomly rearrange the cost of all the non-power cards in your deck. So not only does she have a sweet Rocketeer helmet, but okay, so the way this card works is that it takes all the casting costs of every non-power card in your deck, puts it into a bucket, shuffles it up, and then deploys it back in, which means that you can get the same casting cost back on a unit, or it's random. It's not like 100%. Like, for example, if you have 4 1-cost units and 4 10-cost units, it's not automatically going to swap all of those. So keep that in mind when you are kind of building around eccentric officer. All right, Alex, high or low?
Low.
All right, man, just fired that off,
Well,
boy.
this is just so
Fearless.
like this is not giving you anything that you know for sure. It's like total crapshoot. I don't know.
Yeah, and then a T2, and a T2 decay for 4 isn't a great on
It's
rate
not
either.
even flying. What the heck is that?
One of
Oh
these
my
wing
God,
cards
you're
that
right.
doesn't fly.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. You're 100% right.
Yeah, it's
Another,
like the
and this one's got
trend.
wings.
You hate to
And
see
this
it.
one's got wings.
I don't
Direwolf.
get it, I
Oh
guess.
my gosh, flavor fail.
Total.
It is weird. It is weird that they're making these Valkyries that don't fly, and they don't even have anything in the name, like, you know, training Valkyrie or cast, you know, exiled something. Like, yeah, literally, she's got wings that had the engines turn on.
I mean,
All right,
You said it. She's the Rocketeer. It doesn't fly.
yeah, there you go. All right, well then, John, what do you think of eccentric officer?
Yeah, I think I think this effect is obviously unique and really interesting, intriguing, but bad probably, right? Like it's just so random. However, I've already seen somebody with an interesting brew with this with Dragonforge, because, you know, obviously when you combine this with a tutor effect, you can like go get the one that's the cost you're looking for, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like I think there's some applications for this card that aren't just completely meme tier, but I think it's like still on the border of that meme tier, like as good as it can possibly be. Yeah, this is just like a fun, you know, deck building build around, just a fun card, I think. Ultimately I don't think it'll be competitive in any way. And I know you mentioned you know, just throw in some extra RNG into a kilo deck. Like that idea sounds fun to me. I'll try it, but like, no, it's not gonna be good. But
Yeah, just completely surprise yourself. It's like, I have no idea what I'm looking for.
yeah, I don't. This is a fun card, but
Yeah, fair enough. All right,
what is that?
Stormguard.
Yeah,
Okay, so I think the main thing to consider here is, are we happy with the unit as is if it did absolutely nothing else? Because as Jedi, you mentioned, when you swap all the random values of the cards in your deck, there's a good chance that there's nothing super impactful. Like the maybe 1 or 2 weapons that you're looking for get a cost reduction of maybe 1 or 2, but that's not super high impact. So then we need to see like the rest of the card, does it do anything for us? And when you put it together, a 4 cost 2/2 decay with nothing else that's relevant is not a playable card. You will never play that in constructed and limited, so on and so forth. So if your floor is a 4 power 2/2 decay, I think that is way too weak for both Throne and Expedition, which is why outside of some really fun meme and goofy decks, I don't think I'd ever touch them.
like why do you think this is so poorly statted? Like, if this was a 4/4 decay for 4,
Yeah,
do you
I
think it
don't-
would see much play?
like a 4/4 decay for 4, you could play in like a fire mid-range deck,
Yeah,
right? Like defective flamebot sees play in some variants, and I think like rearranging the costs of like your already fairly cheap deck is fine. It could be goofy, but the card already does enough by itself without the random rearrangement. But
I think
in
they were
this case,
way too safe.
I agree. It's just so underwhelming.
Yeah, and then going back to the tribal thing, there's so many Valkyries that are way higher reward than this, so it's competing with that as well if you're trying to make, you know, a Valkyrie deck or whatever. So, yep. All right, Alex, you got another point there, man. Easy peasy. You're cruising through this. All right, moving along to time, we have Privilege of Nobility. It is a relic for 1 time. The enemy player can't make you discard or sacrifice cards, i.e. things like, actually, I don't even know what sacrifice cards we're seeing in Constructed right now. I can't think of any off the top of my head. I mean,
there might
Vox.
be a Vox in the tournament this weekend.
Yeah.
You might see a Vox.
And then discard, that includes exploit. And then, of course, mill strategies don't work as well because the way the game works, milling is discarding from your deck. So you can definitely negate that as well. Then it has an ultimate. Pay 6 to gain 1 life for each of your units and each card in your hand. So it adds up all the cards are in your hand as well as all the units in play, and then you gain that much life for 6. Kind of feels like if you got nothing better to do, here's a little extra value, but I don't know. Alex, high or low?
High. Market high.
Okay, yeah, I can go with that. That's respectable. I'll let that. All right, standing back to you for Stormguard.
Okay. I'm gonna actually disagree with Alex's assessment here, and because you're saying that it's a good market card, but when you think about all the other things that it's trying to counter, so you're stopping exploit, you're stopping found discard mill, you're stopping equalize, right? You just play a negation spell, like you play your swift refusal or your dazzle or your so on and so forth, and those cards are just so much more versatile. If you're sticking this in the market, you are down a card. The ultimate basically does nothing relevant because it's just gaining life on a card, which is like on occasion okay, but it costs 6 power to activate, which is a hefty chunk, especially if the life gain really does matter in the matchup. So I think that the card is full. It's too narrow to be even considered in the market, especially when you have so much better other options that you could be playing.
All right, fair enough. John.
Yeah, I'm much more with Stormguard on this card. Definitely low on this one. I personally like the enemy can't make you discard. That's the kind of thing that makes people feel bad, right? And so giving them a chance to play a card like this can help them feel better about that. So I think that'll be one of the main reasons people play this card, is that they just hate having their hand disrupted that much. But to me, it's much closer to just already being down a card in your hand by playing this card. So I'm way more interested in the fact that it's a relic, the fact that it only costs 1, and the fact that it has an ultimate here. So I'm looking at it more of an expedition synergy card. Maybe it has a home in some kind of relic deck. It could go in Clear the Way deck or whatever, but I think it has a lot of competition for that. So I mean, maybe there's a home for it, but I'm definitely low on this card myself.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You play it as a random 2 of in something like a Perilous Research, or like you said, a Clear the Way deck, where sometimes you'll get bonus of what that relic actually does, and if not, then you have a way of kind of sacrificing or getting alternate uses out of it.
One use I just thought of is I know the big Combre Equalize deck is kind of popular in Expedition, and it's somewhat it shows up occasionally in Throne as well. And so I guess in that mirror, this is very good. It helps you reduce your hand size, and it prevents you from being equalized. So I mean, it kind of makes some sense in a matchup like that, or when Equalize is a big card in Expedition. So
yeah, I think that's a solid point.
For with this can't sacrifice or discard, so it just shuts
stops
that off.
the turn to exploit every time, man.
You're not wrong. The another consideration for it as well is that the knowledge display can get this at fast speed. Oh, but you can't play it. Never mind. I was like, you can grab this at fast speed and play it to negate exploit or something, but you can't play it at fast speed. So disregard. Never mind. Jedi is bad.
Yeah, but Combre normally, I mean, I guess it does have that other Combre card that also says you can't discard. So I mean, maybe now, but this one, the privilege says enemy player can't make you, right? So you can't use this as 4 more ways to make yourself not discard to go in on some weird combo or something that doesn't exist yet. So no. Okay, let's move.
Sorry, if you don't mind me interjecting again, because I just thought of something random. I think there's a huge difference between interacting with this relic at slow speed versus say negation spells at fast speed. Because if you're giving your opponent the choice, if their hand is able to beat the privilege of nobility, then they just ignore it entirely, and you just essentially wasted a card and gained some life, right? If it's good against their hand, then they just have the option of removing it. It's not as if like Expedition is fairly lacking in terms of relic interaction either. Yes, we don't have Boar. Yes, we don't have Saber-Tooth Pride Leader. We still have Sudden Agent. We still have Impound, so on and so forth, right? Another case is that it doesn't stop the enemy player from doing it themselves. So, for instance, I've seen a lot of like discard esque decks in the playing, for instance, 2 cards that we're going to talk about later on down the road that are super synergistic, and it doesn't stop them from doing it, which makes it even more of a narrow market. Which is why, like, given the plethora of options that we have, yes, we could say this is a decent like market option, but I just think we have stronger options that we would rather play with.
All right, fair enough. Let's go ahead and move on instead of trying to find out whack ways to play this card. All right, next time card is Prosperity of the Reach. It is a spell for 3 time. Gain 3 life. That's it. There you go. Nah, I'm just kidding. Draw a card. If there are 10 or more units in your void, put 10 of them at random into your deck to take an additional turn after this. So once again, for 3 time, gain 3 life, draw a card. If there are 10 or more units in your void, put 10 of them at random into your deck to take an additional turn after this. Alex, what do you think, buddy?
Well, this card's crazy. And because it says draw a card on it, I'm going to say John's high on it.
Ooh, ballsy. All right, let's see. John, start us off on this one.
I mean, it's okay. I think this is, like, the power level is there, like, because of, it's a relatively cheap way to take an extra turn, but the setup is the cost here, right? I mean, it might as well cost the same as what's that other
Soul's Rest.
Like, what is that, 8
yeah.
or 10 or something?
9,
9,
I believe.
Yeah, so I mean, it may as well cost the same essentially, as far as when in the game you can play it, right? I mean, you have to set up your void with 10 units, so you're either like milling yourself or going wide, and so I mean, I feel like that essentially puts this in a very niche but powerful category. I haven't really brewed with this yet, but yeah, I'm pretty high on this card. I don't know. I definitely didn't. It doesn't just immediately have a home, because like as soon as when a lot of decks where you try this card, it like just doesn't quite do what you want it to. It's like I feel like its best case is, like a market finisher, but like the fact that it's a cantrip and only costs 3 makes it like kind of main deckable. So I don't know what the actual best use of it is at all yet, and it's gonna the set dropped before this tournament, and I looked at this card and I'm just like, there's not enough time to figure this one out, like, kind of thing. So deferring this one for later as far as brewing, but yeah, I am high on this one. So
I guess if it's too late, if it's late enough in the game, you could play this, then reread it the next turn and play it again if you have enough units. And then Soul's Rest is 8. I just looked it up. 8. It's 8. Yeah, 8 triple time.
So I mean, at that point, because it puts all the units in your void, I mean, you have to have 20 units to do it twice, right? Like, I mean, you better just be killing them with that extra turn, I feel like.
I mean, you're just playing Grenadin Uprising, and you keep sacking the Grenadins every turn, so then you have a bunch of units to this thing.
That's 3 to do each. I mean, that's gonna take so long.
I was just trolling, dude. I was just trolling. I mean, I guess, all right, going back to it, you could do like all the Grenadins that make more than 1 unit, right?
Yeah.
Then they all die because they're all chump blocking. And then you play this, and then you play Gear Hulk. I gotta stop saying that because people are gonna look up Gear Hulk, Gear Cruncher, and fill your board with more guys to put in the void. Oh no, I'm just joking. It's horrible. All right, Stormguard, please stop the pain. Make me shut up.
I don't know if I'll be stopping the pain much, but I really, really like the card. I back in the day when I was a competent Eternal player, I used to play a lot of sacrifice decks because I just love the lines and the sequencing and so on and so forth. And anyone who has ever played those will know that 10 units in your void is not incredibly prohibitive. Like I've seen some iterations, especially with both Grenahen and Crafty Occultist right now. I've seen some decks be able to accomplish that by like turn 5. So it's really not that bad. The question is, how are those the types of decks that can really take advantage of an extra turn? Which leads me more to think of this as like a shrine-ish card, because you're capable of dealing massive amounts of damage in one turn. Shrine, Kato, so on and so forth. I really wish this wasn't in time, but I guess that would be a faction. Like, I wish this was in like Primal or something. Primal or Shadow. I think we would be way better at taking advantage of it. But I do still think the card has a lot of potential. I'm just not, as John said, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this.
Fair enough. All right, Alex, I'm going to give you that one, man. You hit the nail on the head. Good call, bro.
Draw a card.
Got that one.
Yeah. All right, next up, a card that I'm excited to play with. Not the most exciting card for me in the set, but this one's up here. This is Tara, Ever Loyal. She's a 3/3 paladin for 3 double justice. Summon, give one of your other units Warcry 2. When an enemy kills that unit, double Tara's attack and health, and she gets Warcry 4. Keyword there is enemy kills that unit, so you can't run some type of like Argent Port and then devour your unit, etc., etc. Yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward. Up until that point, it's just a 3/3 vanilla, and then she gets buffed up to a minimum of a 6/6 Warcry 4. All right, Alex, up or down, buddy?
This is 2 thumbs up for me, man. I love this card. I think John will love it too, and Stormguard.
Sweet. All right, let's find out. Let's check the tape. Stormguard, you're up first, buddy.
I think it's a solid card, but I don't think it's the most powerful card out of this mini set. And here's my reasoning, right? If we at the floor of this card is a 3-cost 3, right? Which is fine, but not particularly exciting. I think the consideration must also be taken that Tara is not a particularly difficult unit to deal with herself, right? So if, say, you play the Tara, you give one of your other units Warcry 2, and then your opponent immediately kills the Tara. Are you happy with that? I think you're happy with that. It got its value as a solid card, but it's not particularly powerful or exciting. That being said, it is a mono justice. So there are a lot of fun things that you can end up doing with this. But I don't know. I think it's a solid value card, but it doesn't really make me interested in like coming up with a new deck to play around it with. I think you'll definitely see some play, particularly in Expedition, where the power the removal is worse, the power because you don't have Torch or Seer, and the power level is a little bit lower. But I don't think this will make like a massive splash in Throne, just because the floor on it is just a bit too low.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand like the obvious line of play where you kind of do the Ikaria thing where you Tara into another Tara that got Warcry and whatnot. But so my question, I guess, and I mean, you guys could try to, maybe you guys do have the answers, but I'm wondering how her doubling stats interacts with things like, if you have a window to cast Finest Hour, like for example, if they're going to, I guess you would, if they're casting a fast spell on the unit that has the Warcry, which I'm assuming they'll just kill Tara first, but I could be wrong. But what I'm wondering is if in combat, if you have a fast spell, you know what I mean? I guess you would in blocks, right? If you have the Finest Hour, so you put the Warcry 2 on a 2/2, you swing in, they block, your 2/2 or your 2/1 on their even-handed golem. If you Finest Hour Tara before that dies, if it's gonna double the 6/6 or if it's still just gonna double the 3/3.
Yeah, it
then
doubles
obviously
the stats on top of it, but then after the turn ends, you then get the reduction of the Finest Hour 3/3, right? Once that
got you. So she'll finish as a 9/9.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Works
Got you.
exactly the same way as who's his face, the Kadosha Stranger, who also does
Yes.
it.
And then it ignores weapons, right? It won't double weapon stats, or will it?
I believe it does double weapon.
So I mean, the weapon itself, I know, will stay as a 2. Like if you have, for example, the longsword, right? It's a 2/2, so she's a 5/5.
Yeah, like,
will she
if
become
that
a
weapon-
10/10?
Yeah, like.
And
her-
then when the weapon dies, she'll be an 8/8, or
Yeah.
will she only still get the +3 because the weapon is not technically her stats?
Right. Well, no, like the weapon counts towards her stats, like same as a finest hour, right? But then if the weapon falls off or goes to the void, the weapon's stats are the normal weapon
Then
stats.
removed.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So I mean, that gives her a little bit more potential, right? You slap a weapon with
I mean-
overwhelm on it or something. I mean, to an extent. But anyway, go ahead, John.
The issue there is like you just spent a card to buff stats that are already getting buffed on a unit with no protection. Right. So you're just like it's an all-in strategy is what you're describing. And I think generally that's like not where you want to be. I think she's, she's aggressively costed and like Storm said, the floor is not bad. And I think the ceiling is very high because this is a steamrolly effect. Warcry is a steamrolly mechanic, and Warcry 2 and Warcry 4 are very real buffs. So I think this is a card that has to be dealt with, but also like Storm said, that it's easily dealt with for the most part. So, But the fact that it only costs 3, it's a tempo play. Like I think it'll find a home. I think it's a powerful card. I do like it. I tried brewing with it immediately, and I was underwhelmed a little bit. Maybe I was just whelmed. Whatever. Like it's good.
Can I ask a question about interaction with this?
Sure.
So killering something, does that count as your opponent killing it?
Ooh.
Yeah, like
that's a good call.
an enemy. Like so, if it
Yes.
trades in combat with a killer attack
So, like,
or
if-
something,
like,
that
if you-
an enemy counts an enemy's unit or whatever. Like as
So,
far
like-
as the game mechanics go.
So for like
Yeah.
Maveloth Huntress, you would give it immediately 2 Warcry, you kill something, and then it would immediately buff the Tara.
That's
Yes.
right. That's a great, an easy, great line of play with Tara.
Like that's like just what jumps in my head, and like that's like Magical Christmas Land. I mean,
That's not Magical
Eternal
Christmas
Christmas Land.
No, not
No.
really.
No, because you're playing 4 of both of those in any Huru deck or whatever that's playing these cards. Like you'll have.
Yeah, I
you'll
think
have
that's
that come
extremely viable.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice, Alex.
Well, I think Stormguard mentioned that somewhere in one of the chats, but
up.
yeah, I was just curious if it did actually work that way because that seems powerful to me.
Yeah, that's a nice 2-card combo. Like you get the value immediately kind of thing, but you're generally going to get the value immediately no matter what as far as the Warcry, right? Because typically you're playing it on a unit that's been on play, for a turn that can already attack. That's an example where you maybe
Yeah.
have no board and can still get value. So like that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
But that
So,
also, if you
to
attack,
a
your
certain-
opponent doesn't have to block and then not buff the
Yeah.
Tara, whereas you're forcing the kill with the
Right.
killer,
I mean,
Yes.
even in that scenario, you're still getting 5/5 worth of stats for 3. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth, right? Because you're getting the 2 Warcry 2 on the next weapon or unit, plus Tara is a 3/3. So there's that.
Mhm.
Anywho, all right, we'll move right along because I do want to keep this to a timely fashion. This is the card I can't wait to brew with. I've already dabbled in it a little bit in testing to figure out certain interactions. This is Bellows Revolt. This is a spell for 9 double justice. So, of course, this is probably going to be unplayable, but I'm still going to try. Choose 3 units with different names and 9 attack or less from your deck. The enemy player chooses 1 to play on their side. You play the other 2. So once again, choose 3 units with different names and 9 attack or less from your deck. The enemy player chooses 1 to play on their side, and you play the other 2. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm just going to use the limited mantra of when your opponent is choosing, it's typically not good, so I'm going to say low.
All right, fair enough. John. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is you first, John. All right, what do you think?
I mean, this one, nothing like nothing comes to mind that I really want to just do with this card. It costs 9. There's no built-in cost reduction clauses or anything like other powerful cards like this we've been seeing lately. You mentioned the opponent choosing. Like I think this is strictly in the whack category for me. it was fun to see Jedi Brewing with it, on stream the other day. But this is definitely not my kind of card. Alex knows me well. I like big, powerful cards, and to me, this is like not like somehow it's a big, powerful card, but it's somehow not in that category. I don't know how I'm categorizing this, but
Yeah.
like I don't think there's just some busted thing you can do with this in the game, and even if there is, like your opponents are gonna see this coming a mile away, right? And I feel like it's just not gonna work out. I don't know.
I mean, not quite. It's in the same slot as Martyr's Chain, so he could run that instead. Like the best thing I came up with off the bat was like running Roshi with 2 units and then running some kind of like hourglass to give your guys endurance. So if they took Roshi, they couldn't stun your guys, but if they didn't take Roshi, you can stun their guy. And then I tried Voprex, like the OG Voprex. That's still kind of iffy. I think it's too risky to run Svetya because of the Aegis, like they could not have units to buff or whatnot, but it's I don't know.
Right,
I think it's good.
The best use is like just playing Svetya the turn before you do this, right? Because then the opponent doesn't get a unit.
Yeah, true. Good call.
And that's a reasonable. You could go 6 power, do something else, and then like the next turn play this for your whole turn. I guess if you're just some kind of ramp deck, like that's like the one use I see for it in the game currently.
Mm-hmm. And then the chat mentioned strangers, so that way you still get the buff of the stranger, and your opponent may or may not use it. I thought the champions would probably be a pretty safe one as well, right? Because your opponent's still gonna be play the one champion that they either can utilize or the one they can't deal with, so they could deal with the other 2. So there's that. There's a couple of things, but yeah, I'm with you. I think this card is whack. I'm still gonna play with it, but Stormguard, what do you think?
I'm probably lower than John on it, if that's even possible. Okay, so when I see this card, what comes to mind is this card called Emergent Ultimatum from Magic the Gathering. So it's basically like this flashy 7-cost tri-faction spell where your opponent gets to like pick 3 things. You pick 3 things, your opponent gives you 2, and then you I believe get rid of the last one. A, this is more expensive. B, your opponent gets to take one of them. So they're always going to take the best. And I think it comes down to, are you better off just playing the good cards? Like you're playing a bunch of flashy, powerful units. You can just play those units instead of trying to finagle around with the Balance Revolt, which is a 9-cost slow spell, which means it's more than liable to be negated in some way, shape, or fashion, right? There is potential for trying to pull this off with, say, World Pyre, but again, if you decide to go down the World Pyre line, you just pop your massive honking units into play instead. You don't have to play this card and give your opponent a ridiculously powerful unit from your deck.
Right.
There is something to be said of like I think the main difference between this card and something like Martyr's Chains is that A, you're not giving your opponent any advantage, but B, you can also play like cheap value units throughout and not have to play super expensive units in your deck that you could end up with stranded in hand, right? Martyr's Chains makes any threat into a giant threat. In the case of this card, all your threats have to be difficult to play, and giant threats already, which means you're going to really struggle in the early game, which is why I don't think I am going to ever touch this card.
I'm just going to play Eccentric Officer on 4, make this swap with my even hand golem so I could pay it for 2, and bam, value.
Bam.
Ay.
All right, next, moving on to Primal Storm Hex is a fast spell for 3 double primal, and then play a permafrost on an enemy unit, which is stun an enemy unit, quote unquote permanently. It's a curse, or create and draw a 4/4 Storm Dancer with flying. Remember, this is a fast spell, so it does allow you to play permafrost at fast speed that will take the unit out of combat because it stuns it, Or, of course, you draw the 4/4 Dancer. You can't play it, but you can draw it at the opponent's EOT. All right, Alex. You've been rocking it so far, man.
I'm just going to say hi. This card's neat. I like it.
All right, fair enough. All right, starting it with you, Stormguard. Where are you at on Storm Hex?
As I'm kind of low on this card. As John mentioned in what's its face in team chat the other day, it's a very neat way to trigger muster by having the spell and the attachment in the same turn. So if you're looking for a really easy way to trigger muster in your muster deck, this is it. Otherwise, I think it's just way too overcosted on both fronts, even if it is a spell for the decks that really care about spells. Because an additional 2 cost for a fast speed permafrost is just way too clunky. The whole advantage of playing permafrost is that it's such a good tempo play because it can take out such a large unit for just 1 power. If you tack an additional 2 power on it, even at fast speed, that's extremely awkward. And on the flip side, you're never going to be happy with a Storm Dancer mode because it just costs too much. You're paying 8 power total for a 4/4 flyer, which, yes, you'll have in some spots, but you're never happy to be doing it, which is why I think some people might try jam this into like a Geralt deck of some kind, or perhaps like a Conjurer deck, and they're going to soon very quickly realize that the card is just too clunky for both modes. Like, I never want to be playing either mode, which means I never want to be playing the card.
All right, that makes sense. John?
Yeah, I agree with Storm very much on this. It's exactly too expensive on all the modes. You know, despite a card like this, normally you're like happy because of the flexibility, but in this case, like the only reason that you play permafrost in your deck is because it costs 1. Like that's like, and I've never been like, man, I really wish I had 8 permafrost in this deck. Like, no. So you're not playing, you're not playing 4 more permafrost. And like, I think this is a niche case card. It's only going to be good if you're like all in on some muster deck. Like maybe that comes back in Expedition in a big way or something in the future. Or, at one point, like there was like a curse control deck that was like,
oh man, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah,
I think this could have a home there. And if somebody wants to bring that deck back, I think it has a chance there because like that deck kind of like liked playing. Well, first of all, Jedi, your version actually popped off with that muster card draw guy. So I think your version particularly could use this card, but that's like 1 deck or whatever. So yeah, I'm with Storm. I'm pretty low on it overall. So sorry, Alex.
Whatever, dude. I'm gonna permafrost you with those.
I mean, the thing is this is a telegraphed permafrost as well, and I can interact with it more easily with most decks I play with like negates and stuff. So you can try.
I also looked at it as a limited card, and that would be an amazing draft card.
It would be so good in draft. That's the thing that pains me when every time we review these mini sets, I'm like, man, this card would be sweet in draft. Like,
it would
but
be
I'm never
an amazing. Yeah, it would be an amazing
I paid
draft
for
card.
it because I bought the campaign, and I'm never gonna play it. It's like unlucky.
I mean, they have recently added the campaign cards to the Scion drafts, so I guess there's that.
I mean, small, asterisk, whatever. We get a taste of it, but I like, I wish campaign cards were like not, I just wish, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I wish the cards that were like, just
the good draft cards were in the drafts.
They should throw some randomly into Expedition since they're in the format anyways in the draft packs, and then that way it'll maybe incentivize people to draft because you can get campaign cards out of there or something like that. That would be neat.
I wouldn't be against it, but
All right, so moving on. This one I have no idea. Glenn Flacciata? John, do you have any idea how to say that?
Flacciata me after I'm done with them.
Ooh, I like that. All right, Flacciata. I like that. Glenn Flacciata is a 1/1 Mandrake for 4 Primal. Summon, play a 3/3 Mandrake. Ultimate. When Glenn Flacciata is transformed, play a copy of the new unit. So immediately when you play it, you're going to get 4/4 worth of stats for 4 across 2 bodies. And then if you happen to transform Flacciata with something like the, I forgot now, the mask or the, was it unstable? I don't remember now. Anywho, it will immediately make a copy of that card, but only the time you copy it, because after that, it is no longer Flacciata. All right, Alex.
Glenn, that is so funny. So I think this would be a fun card to brew with, but I don't think John would be high on it.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen the transform decks ever be a thing, honestly. I mean, typically when we've seen them in the past, it's been one transform card that kind of gets some additional value in the deck, but rarely have we seen those. Seem to be more kind of low end fun decks. All right, this is you, John.
I don't know. Like, I think this definitely makes the cut for Expedition. I think it's worth trying to like brew a little bit around it. Like, it's like reasonable as far as the stats go, and the fact that it's spread over 2 bodies is pretty good. There's a lot of synergy for just having mandrakes on board. Period with mandrakes. It has an ultimate. Like, it's a good synergy card, and its fail case is pretty good. Unfortunately, like, its ultimate can be interrupted, because it's a unit and it's got very low stats to start off with, so it's a little fragile as far as being disrupted. But they're spending removal on one of the 2 cards it made. Typically speaking, I think it's pretty solid, actually. It's definitely not my style per se or anything like that. I agree with Jedi as far as the power level of like transform synergy decks in general, but I don't know that, I don't know that that's where you want to be with this card. I think it's more of like a value card or like a mandrake card, that you're already playing some transform effects in those decks typically anyway. So I think it has a home for sure, and I've actually seen this in Throne already in like the top ranks, hilariously, like, and it's looked okay occasionally. So I guess if I have to tip the scale one way or the other, I guess I'm high on it. I think it's probably one of the better cards in this underwhelming campaign overall, I would say. What do you think, Storm?
I mean, real quick, just to interject, when your opponent turns to seeds it, you get 2 seedlings instead of 1. All right,
Yep.
please, Stormguard, end my misery.
I don't think that interaction works the way you want it to, but I am honestly not entirely sure.
I mean, it doesn't say when you do it, right?
No,
when
it definitely works.
Glenn is transformed. Yeah, it just says when. So if they polymorph it, they turn into a pig or a goat, a sheep, whatever.
Yeah, you get an
2
extra one.
seeds. I think it's fine. I mean, okay, so one of our teammates, Ash Acer, loves the transform deck for some apparent reason. I don't know. Perhaps he was hit on the head as a child. But like, I think as like a base level, the card is just fine because you're still getting a 1/1 and 3/3 out of it. You're getting a 4/4 worth of stats for 4, which is unexciting, but viable. Like, you're not unhappy to see that, which means that any transform bonus that you get is just gravy, right? Yes, it's a very high variance card, but that's just the nature of transform in general. I mean, we have Vargo's Pelt, we have Fluctuate Reality, we have Reshape all in Expedition now, I believe. So there's definitely, it might not be tournament viable, but I could definitely see a lot of people goofing around with this card on ladder and so forth. Because it's a fun card, and that's the nature transform. You never know what's coming. And having, like, what's the word for it? Like, imagine if you fluctuate reality this into a Svetcha, and then you get 2 Svetchas. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. So
in that case, you do even get the summon too. Yeah, it's like a lot of transforms, you miss out on the sweet summons, and this one you actually do get them. Or
into 2 6s that give +2 to your spells. It's like, it's so random, like,
exactly.
I don't know.
I don't think it's ever going to be tournament viable, but I think on like in a more not say casual, but more.
I mean, it's definitely fun. Like you said, Ash Ace, he's stuck on it. It is fun, that's for sure.
It is a delightful child.
See, what it kind of reminds me of is Twinning Seedling, or not Twinning Spitling, whatever, the
Twin
shadow
Spitling.
one.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good.
but
card.
like, yeah, that card is so much better. Like, it's a little
better
power
on its
restrictive,
own,
but
it
yeah,
has no like way to amp it up even further, like
Yeah.
this one does.
Yeah.
this one goes to 11.
It can, or sometimes
Alright.
it doesn't. It's a higher
Alright.
variance version of that card.
All
No,
right, moving
higher
along.
speed. Yeah.
Moving along to what I think is some of the sweetest artwork in this set, as well as shout out to Mercurial Blue, fellow streamer and drafter, that this is their custom card. So this is Thieving Fox. It is a Grenadin Beast. It is a 2/2 for 3 shadow. Unblockable while the enemy player has more cards in their hand than you. Infiltrate. Look at the top card of the enemy player's deck. You may draw it or the card below. So a couple of things here. Unblockable while the enemy player has more cards in their hand than you. That, I believe, is active at all times. So should they do something to like a fast spell that will lower their hand below yours, then it loses that ability at fast speed. The inverse will happen as well, that if they draw cards with like wisdom, then it could become unblockable out of nowhere. And then as far as I believe, I've not seen this interaction, but clarify for me if I'm wrong. You notice how it only says you look at the top card. So what will happen is you'll get to see the top card and then you choose whether you draw that one. And if you don't, then I believe that card stays there and you just blindly draw the next card, correct?
Yes, and so you know what your opponent's draw is.
Yeah, correct. Sweet. So all kinds of great value and information. Of course, yeah. So pretty much it's a combination of whether you want the card that you're looking at or not, or if you rather your opponent have that card or not. For example, if it's Ascendant Agent and all your cards, well, I guess your cards wouldn't all be multi-faction because you have Thieving Fox. Never mind. Disregard. Anywho. All right. This one is Stormguard.
All right. So Wait, sorry, Alex, do you want to do your
Oh, thank you.
I was about to
John assessment?
The John Sussman. No, I mean, designed by friend of the community and podcast, Mercurial Blue. I'm going to say hi on this one. Got to try it.
I like it. I like going with the honor call. I dig it. Okay. Thank you for keeping me in check. Now, back over to you, Storm.
I really don't like the card, and here's why. So the fail case, it is a 3-cost 2/2. It is what I believe the Magic audience would refer to as a Grey Ogre, which is not a good card. I think the fact that your opponent can interrupt you by blocking it with fast spells and so on and so forth is a huge knock to the card, because they don't even need combat tricks to ruin combat for you. The infiltrate is nice, but the fact that you can only do it one time is also kind of rough. Yes, you get a sort of fate seal as like a Magic term, where you essentially like control their draw, is nice because it really does help to disrupt your plan. But if that only tends to help when you're on like an aggressive game plan, right? You want to keep them off tempo, keep them off balance, and close them out. Be able to close things out quickly, which a 2/2 for 3 doesn't really do. Granted, you might be able to, for instance, stack a bunch of like pump spells onto it. So, for example, you got your Finest Hours, your Spiteful Strikes, just slam with like a massive fox in the face. And since you are using a bunch of pump spells to do so, you're more likely to have less cards in hand. But as we've seen with other like Terrazon Echo Blitz strategies, that doesn't tend to pan out very well. One thing to keep in mind here, obviously, is that even though you are getting card advantage, it's from your opponent's deck. And as we've seen with cards like Street Urchin, or for instance, as I wrote about when it came to our Found Discard deck from the TNE Winter Invitational, shameless plug, you rarely want to be activating the Tome of Horrors, because with decks that are so high synergy now, it doesn't pan out very well for you. Like, imagine if you draw an even-handed Golem from them. As a deck with odd costing spells, it literally does nothing for you. So I think it's a cute card, but also it dies to Blazing Salvo. I prefer my 3-cost cards not die because that's such a massive tempo loss. I do think it's a cute card and it does have applications, but in order to make the floor not so low, you have to give it so much support in the deck. It has to be such a heavy build around to the point where I think it's not going to be particularly good.
Savage.
Thank you. Okay. What do you think, John?
Yeah, man, I agree basically with Stormguard here completely. I'm definitely low on this card as far as constructed playability. If this was a draft card, I would be very high on it. I would love to play it. It'd be fun. I mean, it is a fun card, period. But I just don't think it's competitive for all those reasons Storm mentioned. And like, I think Infiltrate in particular as a mechanic, like I've always just kind of hated it, honestly. Like it feels like impossible to like, no opponent is going to ever let you infiltrate with, any infiltrate unit, let alone this one, which seems to be like one of the better infiltrate abilities, honestly. I think the infiltrate ability here is sweet. And like, you kind of mentioned, like, I wish it could do it multiple times without, I know it's technically possible with other cards in the game, but like, it's just so much work. And like getting this thing to connect is going to be like impossible. So I think ultimately it just fails on every aspect as far as constructed viability. Wish it were in draft.
Merc, I think it's a flavor win. Good job, bro.
Yeah, it's there's no question there. Great flavor. It's one of the like you said, it's one of the better, pictures in the set. Whatever.
The artwork is cool, yeah.
But
yeah, the flavor is delightful.
Well, I'm with you, Alex. You're still ahead on calls, man. You still got a winning record right now, so you're doing great.
Right on. I could take a loss for Merc there. It's all good.
Yeah,
fair enough. All right, next up, Gentleman Jun D'Angelo is a 4/4 giant rogue. Lol, giant rogue. I need to make that character in D&D. For 5, double shadow, quick draw. So he's big, he's stealthy, and he's fast. Jeez. Summon. Each player chooses 2 cards in their hand to keep and puts the rest into their market. Once again, 4/4 quick draw giant rogue for 5 double shadow. Summon. Each player chooses 2 cards in their hand to keep and puts the rest into their market. This is... Oh, wait, Alex.
I really don't know. This card seems crazy. I'll say hi, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. There's a lot going on here. There's definitely a lot going on here. All right, Stormguard. Why don't you start? Wait a minute. Did I mess up the? Oh no, that's right. This is John. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind you swapping it up. It doesn't really matter. So, yeah, like this is like a 5-drop, and it's kind of a. I mean, this is so not my type of card. Like, the body says like aggro deck, but the cost says control deck. And then like the summon says like blow the damn combo deck. I don't know. Like I think maybe it has a home as like a market choice if your like deck is super weak to like Drago control type decks, but those decks are gonna have like Face Aegis, and this summon effect is actually gonna only wreck your hand and do nothing to your control opponent. So ultimately, I think that I just don't. I think I'm just low on this card. I've already seen people trying to play like just main deck Junes on ladder, and it just it does what you'd think a 5-cost 4/4 quick draw would do. It just kind of like sits there and gets outclassed by other 5-drops or dies to basically any removal. So I don't know. I don't think it's very good personally.
Yeah, like the dream draw would be like Vara on 4 to break Aegis, then play this guy on 5, like you said, against a control deck where you're able to curve out so you only have 2 cards left in hand and you get their extra 6 cards or something like that. But I mean, even then, what do? They just keep their card draw in hand, so they ship
Yeah.
everything, and the next turn they refill. So
Yeah, if you
yeah,
do hit
Stormbreak.
them, they're gonna like the thing with the control deck that draws that many cards is they don't care about a fourth or a third of their cards in any given matchup. Like they just draw so many cards that they're consistently filtering their hand for the ones that matter, right? So
Yep. Stormguard, what's your opinion on John?
I am with John on this one. I'm not particularly impressed by the card because I don't think, at least, well, you know what? Listeners, you can tell me if I'm wrong, as you usually do, but I don't think there's a good way for you to break parity on Jun, on this creepy dude, right? Like, yes, you might be stuffing a bunch of cards in your market, but then you're also down a bunch of cards. And there's not a good way to guarantee that your opponent won't be able to empty out their hand as aggressively as you do. And yes, there is some corner cases with what's his face with like control decks, but then you must keep in mind, like, in terms of the meta, right? Because Equalize is so popular in, say, like the Expedition meta right now, most control decks are running Transpose Markets, even some Eileen's Favors, just to make sure that they constantly have face ages. So this summon effect is not going to be particularly. And even if it was, you must keep in mind that a control deck's top decks and like ability to grind into the late game is just so much better than yours. Assuming that you're probably also not a like control deck as well. Otherwise, why would you be playing this card in it? So their top decks and grinding is always going to be much better than yours, which means you're not going to be able to get much value out of the summon effect of this card. And a 5 cost for quick draw is not worthwhile, which is why I don't think this card is going to be in. If it was like a 6/5 quick draw, I can see, okay, I'm just playing this out as my top end. That's fine. But because the stats just pale in comparison to all the other options that you have at 5, as John mentioned, then I don't think the card is worth playing.
All right. Fair enough. That will do it for our, let me double check. Yep, that'll do it for all our single factions. So let's jump into our first multi-faction card. And this is Shoal Custodian. This is a 4/3 Sentinel for 4 Praxis. Summon, put an enemy unit into the enemy player's hand. Or deal 1 damage to the enemy player for each spell in their hand and increase their cost by 1. The big thing here is the fact that it is an or, not a may or if. So you get to choose when it comes into play whether you want to ping them or if you want to bounce a card. So there's some plus side there. All right, this is on you, Stormguard. Oh, no, man, I don't know. I'm sorry, Alex. My bad. It's getting late. What do you think, Alex?
One of these has got to be high here eventually. I'll just say high on this guy.
All right, fair enough. I like the artwork on this one too. All right, Storm, take it away, friend.
Love it. I love the card.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I know I have been very down on every single card in so far except for Prosperity and Tower, but I love Shoal Custodian. Okay, so random side track because why not, right? I love the Praxis Sentinels archetype in Expedition. It's probably one of the more fun, like goofy tempo decks. And I think that this could really help it because you do have a tendency of just dumping your hand plus full on the board. So this as your top end, I think is really strong just to get the tempo play. In Throne, this episode is probably going to be released after the after everyone has submitted deck lists, right? Yeah, this is fine. So TJ has been considering some semblance of like a Praxis, Geneve, aggro-S list, and this also helps a lot with the top end. The spells thing actually comes in pretty handy against something like a Kira deck or perhaps a Feln deck, where you do tend to expect them to have a lot of spells. I mean, 2-cost Intrusion is still fantastic, but 2-cost Intrusion is a lot more clunky. The only massive downside is that it does only have 3 health, which means it's a massive liability to Torch, Seer, Vicious Overgrowth, yada yada yada, your usual cadre of assorted removal spells, which is kind of hard. But I do like a summon bounce a thing is always going to be very, very helpful. against a lot of the unit-based strategies that we're seeing as of late, which means that although we might not find the home for it right away, I do think it's going to be, even if it doesn't see much play in Throne, it's definitely going to be a very strong role player in Expedition. Hence why I like the card. Also, it's a Sentinel, which is
Nice. Good breakdown. Good breakdown. John, anything to add?
Not really. I also like this card. And basically, yeah, everything Storm said, I agree with. And yeah, I think it's even Throne viable. Like you mentioned, we've been testing various forms of Praxis and whatever, and like if this is like top end and like a go wide Praxis, I think it's very solid. Despite the fact that it does the whole die to torch at 4 thing. It's by the time you play this, they've already spent their removal on a deck like that is just spamming threats 1s, 2s, and 3s. So I mean, this is like probably your only 4-drop in the deck, right? So yeah, I think it's solid. I'm high on this card, so Alex gets a point for this one.
Woot woot. Nice. All right, next up, a card that I want to brew with, even though I don't think it's particularly good, is Nakas, Bastian Prodigy. It is a 1/1 Oni soldier for 1 Rakano. When you play a spell or weapon directly on Nakas, amplify 1. Give Nakas +1/+1 permanently. So, of course, you have to play the card on Nakas directly, and then, of course, it will just automatically add the Amplify 1 trigger on that card. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and you could just keep amplifying it, etc., doing the Oni things, so to speak. My interesting thing, though, is I'm assuming it triggers off of Jishu's +1 Overwhelm.
That's a weapon.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's super neat, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. So this guy, I almost feel like might be a little bit better later in the game when you have more power to amplify than earlier, but who knows. Anywho, I digress. Alex, what do you think of Nakas? I can't even mess it up. It's Nakas, right? Does anyone say it anywhere else?
Low. Low.
Low? All right. Yeah. Locas, I like that. Knock it out the park. Not because I'm gonna play him. Anywho, oh gosh, why do people listen to this show? Anywho, I guess for y'all guys' expertise. Anywho, John, tell us about Nakas.
Naka's gonna work here anymore. He's like I brewed with this guy for sure. This is like on the surface, this looked pretty powerful, and like I already knew a deck I want to try it out in. And you mentioned like Jishu, and it's like I mean I tried it with like that whole Oni combo shell basically, and it's just like it just can't. I feel like it doesn't quite get there in Throne. It's just too slow. It worked better with like a mid-range Kira shell in Rakano for me in Throne. It was actually performing okay there, but I feel like it just may not be like it just might have there's probably a better card for the deck is what I'm trying to say. I think if like that whole if a lot of the pieces of that Oni combo deck from a prior expedition come back into Expedition, I think that deck would make this card shine. But other than that, I think it's just a little too cheeky. It's like by itself, it's basically does nothing.
Do you think there's a market consideration since he's so cheap? You can kind of get him whenever you need to later in the game for some added synergy, or not really?
I don't think so. I think the fact that he's so cheap is one of the things I'm looking at as far as like other potential like maybe this is in a blitz shell that's playing like just spamming 1-drops. Like maybe this has a home there or something. But I think this to figure that one out, I think required too much work for me for this week. Like I couldn't quite get there. I brewed with this card for sure. Like it's a really powerful thing you're doing, but like I don't know if you've tried Copper Conduit at all. Like an Expedition, it's been legal. It's just like I don't know. This is less awkward than that because you get to choose, right? You don't just have to spend your power when you play it, kind of thing. But it's just bad on its own, right? So
yeah,
and it has a lot of competition.
And the flip side to that as well is that he practically telegraphs anytime you have a fast spell, because it's like, oh, they amplified but didn't use all their power. Why would they do that? So
Yeah, pretty much.
Storm, what do you think?
I think this sort of will end up playing like a worse Alessi. Because like, yes, you can dump your like multiple power if you have it into the Nakas, which is nice because you only need one spell to make it big. At the same time, you still have to pay power for it. As you, I don't quite remember what this Oni combo deck is in Expedition. I might not have been around at that time. Teehee. But like at first glance, you want to be in a very low to the ground deck if you plan on playing a lot of cheap spells and a lot of cheap weapons in order to trigger Nakas. But that means that you often won't have the excess power to really dump into it and make it like massive. And yes, through your spells and weapons, you can give it evasion of some kind, be it flying, be it overwhelm, so on and so forth. But I just don't see a good fit for it. Like you're playing a bunch of, as we've seen with every iteration of a blitz deck as of late, right? You're just opening yourself up to getting blown out because as we've gotten more and more efficient removal options, there are just so many ways that dumping all of your power and all of your spells and all of your weapons onto one unit can go horribly wrong. Which is why I think it's a cute and interesting card. And considering the lower power level of Expedition, I can definitely see some play. It's got 2 relevant creature types. 2 relevant unit types, which is also very helpful. But I think it's definitely too slow and too weak and too clunky to see much thrown.
All right, fair enough. And yeah, fair assessment. All right, this is another one that's starting to see play on ladder that I think is kind of fun. I keep wanting to see Shadow in its casting cost, but it's not. This is Crafty Occultist, is a 3/3 cultist for 3 Skycrag. Summon, discard 2 cards, and draw 2 cards. If you discarded a spell, Crafty Cultist gets flying. If you discarded a unit, play a 1/1 Grenadin. So of course, right off the bat, immediately you get to discard 2 cards and then draw 2. So you are having to discard cards before you draw. So keep that in mind. And then of course you can trigger 1, both, or none of these extra additional effects based on how you pitch. So you can keep that in mind as well. And I think that's pretty much about it. Interesting that cultists are kind of spreading into new colors now. Which I believe is Primal. I believe there were some cultists in Fire because of things like Kato, right? I think there were cultists in Fire, not just Xenon.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, just making sure. So now I think John had mentioned earlier that we're starting to see, maybe you did it before the show, but this kind of set kind of stretches the quote unquote color pie a little bit as far as what's kind of bleeding into other effects, which is perfectly fine. Gives people opportunities to brew different ways. So this one is back to you, Stormguard, right?
Well,
Yeah.
real quick here.
Thank you.
So John is the Skycrag wizard, and I'm gonna say hi on this one.
That's all you need. John likes Skycrag. Hi. All right, let's find out. But I'm gonna make you sweat a little bit. Stormguard, tell us about Crafty Occultist.
Okay, so listeners, you guys weren't around for this, but teammates, if you had to deal with me in the week from since this was spoiled to the point where we finally got to pick up this card as Stormbreak got released, everyone here in this podcast can tell you I was completely insufferable because I am so high on this card, even if marijuana wasn't legal and I tried to make a weed joke, it didn't pan out, but whatever. Okay, so this card is absolutely amazing. I have it in like 4 or 5 different brews at this point. The card is bananas because if you're completely empty-handed, obviously you just get to draw 2 cards on top of having a 3/3, which is a perfectly fine. as with the floor theory, right? Let's just talk about the floor. The floor is a 3/3 for 3 that helps you filter. That is a perfectly fine card. And on top of all the cadre of discard synergies that we have across both formats, there is plenty of ways to get value off the discard. Plus, Crawl is still legal. Remember Crawl? Yes, I know Crafty Occultist doesn't have a shadow hip in its influence cost, but it makes for a really, really good shadow card. Like, so often I've just played this card and not discarded a spell or unit, just discarded like my excess power, and I am perfectly happy. Obviously, in that, I've seen it been played in Menace Shells to take more advantage of discard synergies because, well, obviously, a lot of shadow cards have like void recursion nonsense. But I've also seen it played in some iterations of just Skycrag aggro. In fact, across Yetis, across just fire-based Skycrag aggro, because those decks have a tendency of emptying out their hand really quickly now. Especially since the Silex nerf, you're less likely to end up with excess cards in hand. So if you get a 3-cost 3/3, draw 2, you are perfectly happy with that. I'm not entirely sure which build is the best yet and exactly how to break this card. And obviously, because it's a multi-faction card, there is some limit to its potential, and specifically a multi-faction aggressive card. There is some limit to its potential, but I do think that this card is just absolutely bananas. I love it. I love it. I will not stop playing it. My teammates are so frustrated at this point, but I will not stop playing it. There we go.
I know it's crazy. You're even playing it in mono justice decks. It's insane.
I know, right?
All right, John, what do you think?
Yeah, this card's sweet. Alex hit me, has me nailed there with the Skycrag. I don't know, obsession, whatever. I love everything this card is doing. Yeah, it's it doesn't just go in every Skycrag deck. It's not that good because sometimes you don't want a unit with your card draw, but I think anytime you're okay with that, you're gonna want to play this card. I have a feeling this may be like the reason they finally nerfed Kroll, because like this set was coming out on the horizon, and if you could just still be doing Kroll stuff without having the shadow in this card, it would have been insane. It would have just opened it up way too much. So I have a feeling that had something to do with that. Yeah, I love this card. Good in Throne, good in Expedition. Has a lot of fun like brewing potential. I mean, the fact that it makes a Grenadin also has a lot of synergy applications. Like if you're playing this in Throne with a Jotun Hurler, like that one card on its own gives you both a spell and a unit, right? So goes great with this card, for example. Yeah, Storm mentioned some sweet decks already making very good use of this card. It's a fun card. It does everything you like, really. Like if you're playing card games, I feel like.
Nice. Good call, Alex. Well done, man. So there you go, John. Next week's show, you're going to design your custom card for Skycrag if you ever cash in those influence.
Man, I had an epiphany the other day and came up with a sweet custom card. I think I already figured one out.
Oh, shoot. All right. Throw it down, man. The next show, because this one looks like it's already going to be running along. All right, next up we have Devastation. This is a slow spell for 6 fire double shadow. Kill an enemy unit, kill an enemy site, and kill an enemy relic. Steal the enemy player's remaining power this turn. So once again, spell 6 fire double shadow, kill an enemy unit, site, and relic. Steal the enemy player's remaining power this turn. Alex, what do you think, man? This one's tough. What do you think?
So since I think it's really good, I'm going to say low.
Okay. Of note, I think the artwork is sick. I really like the artwork on this one, especially a premium one. All right. Well, matter of factly, John, you're on point on this one. So confirm or deny.
I think I'm low on this card.
Yes.
Oh shoot! There, Alex coming in with the read.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like it costs 6. Like, the fact that it costs 6 and it's slow, and it does all these like one single shot things. It's like, I don't know, man. It's just like you might get 2 of these and it's like okay, but it costs 6. That takes your whole turn. Like only the most ridiculous control decks and players, I think, are wanting to play this card. I think it's just so inefficient. Um, you're just gonna get run over if this is your game plan, you know? In this modern day and age of Eternal gameplay.
I mean, I guess you can give it Destiny or something cute like that. You might have to say that Devastation requires the perfect storm to be effective.
Yeah.
And speaking of storms,
Go
do you have anything to add?
No, I'm good. Go for it.
Almost perfect segue. All right, Storm, what do you think of Devastation?
Yes, I am the perfect storm. Thank you very much. In any case, Devastation sort of reminds me of this card called Casualties of War from, I believe, Magic the Gathering War of the Spark. It's got like a bunch of modes. It's slashy. It costs 6. The difference is that usually you're going to be able to take advantage of probably 2. Like off the top of my head, I can't think of any deck that you would be able to easily take advantage of all 3 modes on Devastation. And because it's a steal remaining power as opposed to what's its face? As opposed to like permanently removing some of their power, it's not as effective because they can just use up all their power, and then you have nothing to do with it. Another thing to note, obviously, it is a slow spell, which is probably the biggest knock to it if you think about it. Like we play splashy 6 fast all the time, but the fact that this is so easily negated means that it's probably way too clunky. If FJS mid-range sees some kind of resurgence, I could see playing like 1 or 2 copies of this main deck, but since that is not a deck, and just grindy value stone scarred mid-range decks aren't really a deck, because like think about it, at 6 cost in those types of decks you have stuff like Svetcha, you have stuff like Shadow Icaria, who are just way more powerful and won't easily be negated by an opposing Swift refusal. So I think this card is probably just a bit too clunky. I mean, I love the art, I love the effect. It's just bad, is the correct way to put it. It's just bad. Yep.
Fair enough. Moving right along, we have Evacuation Plan. This is a fast spell for 4 Combre. Put any number of your units into your hand. Play an exhausted sentinel with their combined strength and health and battle skills. Put any number of your units into your hand. Play an exhausted sentinel with their combined strength and health and battle skills. And it's fast speed, so you could do it EOT, you could do it mid-combat after blocks, you could do it mid-combat, when you're attacking. The sky's the limit here. Alex, what do you think?
Hi.
You
Really
sure
not
that doesn't
sure.
sound very confident?
No, I'm not at all sure about that.
Okay, fair enough. So we're good. That's your final answer?
Yeah.
All right. Survey says John.
Yeah, I like Evacuation Plan. I don't think it's great, but I like it. So I guess I'm high on it. So
Yeah.
give Alex a point there.
Yeah.
Like I think like the effect is like it's pretty tempo negative, but I think with the right deck construction and game plan, I think you can make good enough use of this to where you don't mind the tempo loss so much. If you have battle skill like endurance, for example, like, and you're using this on your turn, the sentinel will be like ready for defense because of endurance. So I like the first place I tried this was like Combre Kira. Like ultimately I don't think like I found the deck to just not quite be there with other decks in the meta right now. But I think it's kind of like one to watch out for as far, if they do some more buffs and nerfs as far as the Eternal metagame, and maybe some other cards come out to support this game plan. I think this is one to watch out for. It could be, in the meta at some point. And like I found it to be pretty good. Like, Combre has a lot of great summon effects, and it's an even card, so it can go with Golem as well. And you can, go back to the glory days of getting multiple uses out of your Golems, like when it first came out. Obviously, Golem doesn't work great with the battle skills part, but you don't really care. It's just one of the things you can do, and the fact that you can do any number of your units, right, and it doesn't just bounce all your units or something ridiculous, makes it a lot more playable than it otherwise would be. And it does work with Kira, right? It's targeting Kira or like Huru Envoy or whatever, so you can get additional value if you're using that part of the card as well. So I like the card. I think it's pretty good.
Nice. Solid breakdown. Storm. Perfect Storm. Stormbreak. Would you like to add anything?
I'm a little bit lower on John on this card. I do think it has a lot of potential. There's a lot of fun things that you can do with deck building and just with this card, because there's so many parts of it that could be useful. I just think at 4 cost, as what is essentially going to be some kind of combat trick-esque situation, is that it's not going to be particularly efficient, and it's just going to be kind of slow. Like, you talk about playing this in Combre Kira, or perhaps like even Combre decks, but then you compare it to stuff like Lord Stayer's Tower. Like, what would you rather spend your 4 power on? The card that requires a lot of setup, or the card that's just good and slaps your opponent's face really, really hard? So I think if this was perhaps like 3 cost, I could see a lot more consideration for it. But I think at this present juncture, it just feels a little bit too conditional. I don't know if, yeah, because Combre isn't. I mean, you have some ambush units in the form of like Desert Marshal and Sabertooth Pride Leader, but in a situation where you say hold this up, and then your opponent doesn't do anything that plays around it, particularly if your opponent manages to play around it, then you're not being in Combre. You're not gonna be able to take advantage of the power that you're not necessarily spending. I mean, yeah. No, wait, scratch that. Because you can just play and bounce all your units, and you probably have all the summon effects anyway, but then you play. You know what?
So
I just have no idea how to build it. I have no
yeah,
idea.
I've built this deck a bunch. Like I've brewed a lot with this card. Like it's a little better than I think you're giving it credit for. You just don't want to be using it defensively, really.
Absolutely.
It's meant to be an offensive trick. And like I mentioned, the fact that you get a Sentinel kind of takes away that whole tempo negative play, right? And the units that you're bouncing will a lot of times have already been given an Aegis, and even if the Aegis has been popped, right? So like the Sentinel might have like a really nice suite of battle skills. You're also playing cards possibly in a deck like this, like Diana and Svetcha. So like, I mean, this is like more of like a top end trick, right? You're not using this as like, finest hour type trick, right? The way Kira works also, right? Sometimes you have to get in a weird attack and lose your Kira in order to buff a flyer or something. Well, this lets you do that so freely. I think it ends up playing better than you think. It just gets outclassed right now by Huru Kira, like the deck.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's just a big meta caveat right now. I think the card itself is pretty solid.
That's fair.
One of the units here.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I just want to say that, yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I'm supposed to go about building this card, because there's just so many elements to it, but they are all pretty powerful elements. So I think, well, if anyone could put it together, it's you, John.
Thank
you.
I'll share one of the lists later if you'd like.
Alex, what was your question?
I was just going to ask, and it's probably a stupid question, but if one of the units that you're bouncing has renown, does it trigger that?
Definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like yeah, put any number, like the way Eternal wording works, like that basically means you're targeting the unit. So yeah, it hits Renown, hits Kira, does all that stuff.
Nice.
And yeah, it's 4
Yeah.
costs. So that's something I did. I think I had I can't remember her name, but that 4/3 with Renown. I think I had her in the deck at one point, but she didn't make the final cut. But yeah, it definitely works.
Nice. Well said, gentlemen. All right, this card is interesting to say the least. Storm Mirage is an illusion for 2 Elysian, 0/5, and then it has Flying, Aegis, and Ambush. Artwork is sick. Alex, high or low?
Low.
All right. Stormguard, why don't you start us off on Storm Mirage? See what I did there?
Yeah. I think the card could see some play in like more defensive decks or like a Flyers deck. I just don't know where this would go. Like it's not as if I guess we have like Broti and so on and so forth. Is Broti an expedition? Hey, Broti's an expedition.
Yes.
But that could be fun.
Brody's
That could
ability
be
does
good.
not work at all on defense, though, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think the problem is I just don't know what deck this card would go into without being any deck that's not really sort of a meme, I say, right? Because Illusion's not really a particularly relevant unit type. Aegis is nice, but they're probably not going to be spending a removal spell on this anyway, and you're not really advancing your board. And as opposed to, I've seen some people try to play this in like an Elysian Flyers Majestic Skies deck, but even if you buff it, it's just still a giant curve.
You just give this thing Exalted and buff something else.
Yeah. So I don't think it's completely unplayable, as I do some other cards, cough cough. But I'm just not sure at all what deck wants this right now, aside from, as we mentioned, the Broti, Hagra, just big health units deck.
Sir
Fair
Mix-a-Lot's
enough.
deck.
Alex, did I ask for your opinion on this one? No, right?
Did anyone get my stupid joke there? Something like that. Yeah, you asked me. I just interjected.
Okay.
It's John's turn now.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I think Storm covered a lot of it. Like, has a lot of battle skills on a cheap unit. So like, I see a little kilo action in its future for me. I also like. I would, if it was a 0/6, I would play this alongside Sling probably, because like I've got some builds where I definitely just play early big butt units to capitalize on immediate card draw. Sometimes like in some builds, so like, but unfortunately it stops at 5 there. I think its basic home is definitely as a defensive card in like a control-y deck, right? This thing can really jam up the board for quite some time because they can't even remove it easily. So like I think like an expedition, for example, like Chalice is legal. Like this is a great Chalice card. I think you might be able to build a competitive deck that's like a competitive control deck that wants to play a card like this that's just that defensive. But I don't know. Like I prefer proactive cards. So I don't know. I guess if I had to say high or low on this, man, I mean the bar is low in this set overall. So I guess I'm high on this. Like I think this will be one of the cards that sees some play, but
Oh my god, I didn't even think of Chalice. Oh gosh.
Yeah,
If
like this is
Chalice
such a
decks
perfect
become
Chalice
popular in expeditions.
card.
My god.
This is the kind of card that could make that happen, right? Like
yeah, absolutely.
This is just such a good roadblock while also giving you 2 Chalice activations. Like, oh my god.
John, always seeing the corner cases, man. Value.
I mean, if something's gonna be remotely playable, I like to at least try it.
Yeah, for sure. Completely understandable. That's what we're here for, to inspire ideas, right?
Yeah.
All right. Next up is Somiel. Twilight's Call.
I don't know.
Yeah. 6/6 Valkyrie. Oh my gosh, another.
Yeah, we got the wings, we got the Valkyrie.
All right. At least her energy matches her influence. Yeah. So 6/6 Valkyrie for 5 Xenon, deadly. Yep. There's a keyword missing, but I'm not gonna say nothing. Apparently, Valkyries don't fly on this island. I guess that kind of makes sense, but at the same time, they're pretty horrible. Anywho. I like how the big Valkyries can't fly, and then there's a ton of 1/1 Valkyries that fly all day long. Anywho.
Well, that kind of makes sense from a flavor perspective, I guess. But then you got like Ikaria, and she don't care.
I feel like to me, I don't think it's their size. I feel like it's their experience, right? So that's how I took it,
Yeah.
right? Anywho. I digress. Anywho, deadly and then summon. Each player's health becomes 13. All right, Alex, where are you at in Somiel?
I'm low on Somiel.
All right, let's find out how it checks out. John, you're up first.
Yeah, I would say low.
Fair enough.
I'm not really big on this card. I don't like the fact that it doesn't fly is annoying. So there's that. Like the fact that the summon, is each player's makes this like not you can't just main deck this and just spam it on 5 all the time, because there's going to be some games where you're just going to like wreck yourself and like possibly help your opponent, right? So I think you really need some specific deck to take advantage of this card. I think you want it for the summon effect. And it's a defensive body. I think there's a deck that can probably make use of it, but I've already seen some people just trying to play this, and it sure hasn't looked great to me. I think the reason they couldn't go lower than 13 is like at any cost. I feel like then it would be like pretty dang good if you could 2-card combo somebody with this, while also possibly I think that would have made it a little too good. I mean, it's kind of close to that, but I haven't really seen any Xenon at any cost decks popping up either.
Do you use this like a life gain, so you pull it out of the market against an aggro deck to kind of buff your life total again?
Right. I think that's one of the like only obvious like cases for it, which relegates it to like it is a 5-cost card that's in time, so like crack market playable only, basically, like unless you've got a specific deck in mind with a very, very interesting strategy that I just don't know what it is yet. Like I know like some players love life swap kind of things and things like that, and those things just never seem to pan out when I see people trying them against me and things like that. So I don't know. I think that going that route is a little sketchy or whatever. So I don't know. I think you mentioned the one kind of playable case for this card for me, Jedi.
Okay, fair enough. Stormguard, where are you at on it?
I think I'm treating this card as a 5-cost multi-faction 6/6, and just the problem with evaluating the summon ability is that it's going to vary so wildly depending on what the opposing archetype is. Like, it could be really good, it could be really bad. I don't think this makes a lot of sense as a market card, because like it's you gain a little bit of life, but it's really not a fantastic defensive body if it can get like slapped by a permafrost and move on, right? So I'm treating this as trying to play this as a 5-cost 6/6 deadly. Now, if we were in Throne, you have way better options. I mean, Tazbu's literally this plus upside. But if we're talking Expedition, I think a 5-cost multi-faction 6/6 deadly is a pretty good just general mid-range unit to ramp into. Like, that is a fat honker. So I think this might see play in the Time Shadow X mid-range decks in Expedition a little bit, because it is kind of difficult to remove. But other than that, I don't expect this to see much. Fair
enough. Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. It it's a one of at best. I don't really ever see this thing being more than that. All right, here is another card that's already kind of had people up in arms as far as the wording goes. I think the flavor of it is pretty neat. This is Gravity Rifle. This is a +4/+8 relic weapon for 5 double Huru. Your avatar can attack the enemy player if they have no flying units. Your avatar can't attack units without flying. So, of course, the joke here, the theme is the fact that having the gravity rifle essentially makes it to where you fly. So you can't interact with ground units, but you can fly over them to hit the opponent, and or you can interact with other flying units. Alex, this one's tricky, man. What do you think?
Yeah, low. I don't like it.
Okay, all right. A little shaky, but then you made the vote with confidence. I like it. All right, let's start off with Stormguard. Where are you at on Gravity Rifle?
I'm gonna go medium because like it is a very influence heavy card, and there are some spots where it's going to be extremely awkward, but it's still a very efficiently costed. I think it's a fairly efficiently costed relic weapon. Whether it sees a terrible amount of constructed play still begs to be the question. I mean, for attack on a relic weapon really doesn't remove a lot of the like mid-range threats at 5, but 8 armor on a relic weapon is definitely very, very heavy. Like the stats wise it's good, but I think the whole you can't attack units without flying is pretty big downside. Like there are a lot of good utility units that do not have flying that would be very happily plucked off by a relic. So I think that the potential is definitely there. The stats are there for the card to be good. I just have A, no idea where I'd play it. B, it might not line up well against the meta of either form. There we go.
Yeah, I think that's sound. I think you said it right. You want that heavy armor to cushion that life total, but then that's mainly going to be against aggro decks that have units on the ground, so it's kind of awkward. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I'm low on this card. Like, I don't, I get it, but like, I don't see a place for it. Like, I feel like you're playing it mostly for the armor, right? Like, the fact that like to actively want this card, you got to just be playing against your deck. Probably is weak to like the whole Valkyrie thing and Expedition or something, right? So maybe you're marketing this for that matchup. Like in other matchups, like it's just gonna go face once or twice, I guess, while they're attacking you on the ground, kind of like Storm was talking about. So like it does take 2 hits in most games, right? Like 8 armor is a big old chunk of armor, but the fact that you're only slapping them for 4 is not that big of a payoff. And like, yeah, the whole lack of flexibility on what you can hit and do with it is a real turnoff for me for this card. I don't like it.
All right, Alex, knocking it out of the park here.
What can I say?
Let's move on. You know your friends, man. You know your friends. All right, here's another card that was kind of hyped up in spoiler season. I haven't really seen it anywhere. This is Endless Step Rebuilder. It is a 6/5 Sentinel for 3 Argent Port. At the start of your turn, put a unit from your void into your deck. If you can't, exhaust Endless Step Rebuilder and take 2 damage. Alex?
Like, I kind of want to like this card, but I'm going to say low.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, this one's on you first, John.
Yeah, I'm low on this. I don't like it. It's it appears,
I don't want to like it.
it appears like it might be good because these stats are very aggressive on a 3-drop, but I mean, it still just trades with other 3-drops that have been printed lately. Like Golem at 5/5 and whatnot. It's a 3-drop. So and like it's kind of on par with some other units that aren't just like exhausted without all this setup and like deal damage to you. Like I wonder if this is like you know only a card in a deck that's playing that. What was that? That goofy like Toll of Warfare or whatever. Like take damage on your turn, deal 3 to the enemy player card, right? Like that's like the only deck that wants to play this card. I feel like I don't know. Like you can't really be an aggressive deck and play this card. Like
And it's not even in the right factions to bond out something, a bigger
Right.
Sentinel.
Yeah, it's randomly in Shadow for Sentinel. Like that's kind of I don't know. I don't get the card really. Like I don't really see a great home for it. I think it's pretty bad. It's just gonna end up pinging you and not attacking or defending. Like, eh.
Fair enough. I agree with you. Storm, what do you think?
I want to like the card because I love void shenanigans in Eternal. Like the first, I don't remember which set it's from, but the first card I crafted from that set was Malaise. I just snap crafted for Malaise. But I think the setup cost is way too high for the payoff that's not there. One super big thing to note is that these types of decks typically they need you to all your other payoffs need units in the void as well. So by putting them back into your deck, you're really cutting off the potential of every other payoff. And the payoff for this card just isn't there. It dies way too easily. I mean, it dies to Defiance, right? Like imagine setting this up, attacking, and immediately knocking it. It gets slapped with a permafrost, and you can't really take advantage of that. And even though it has a big body, it doesn't have any inherent invasion on it. Inherent evasion on it. And given the sort of setup that this deck's you need to play this card in your deck, you're probably not going to have a lot of ways to give this evasion. Or even if you do, they're not going to be very effective with your other cards. So what it boils down to is it's way too high of a setup cost for way too low of a payoff, which means that it's probably not worthwhile playing in your.
Yeah, and then Enforcer hits enemy units, right?
Yes.
Because I was thinking of like how to silence this thing, and then Tactician won't get any battle skills from this.
Units. It's you may silence a unit, so they can just opt not to silence it.
We've had like bigger units like for the same or cheaper that like I mean I've never seen a deck like that actually do anything, right? Like the whole like play things that don't do anything so you can self-silence things like
yeah, fair.
Bad.
All right, fair enough. Next up, all right, this is a big talking point here, apparently. Thank goodness I've been busy. I've been a little disconnected, but we have Grenahen, which is phenomenal artwork and phenomenal name design. Grenahen Bird, 1/3 for 2 Feln, lifesteal, and then summon, draw a unit or a spell that deals damage from the top 3 cards of your deck and discard the rest. So just for clarification, because it took me a second to read it, you can either draw a unit, any unit, period, but of course units deal damage, or a spell that deals damage, things like at any cost, or lightning strike, or Vara's favor. Yeah. Oh yeah. Desecrate deals damage to you. Yeah, correct. There you go. So all those cards trigger, and then of course all the cards in other factions, but those are just the ones that came up to mind in Feln. Alex, what do you think? High or low?
Low, but I like this card.
Okay, yeah, interesting. All right, interesting. Storm, why don't you start us off with Grenahen?
Well, I love it. It's probably tied with Crafty Occultist for most decks that I have put together in the last 48-ish hours. Since Stormbreak has released, I think whilst you do require some setup cost for like spells that deal damage, you could also just play a bunch of units, and that really isn't a high deck building cost. Yes, there will be some corner cases where you just discard a bunch of power, but for decks that are capable of taking advantage of discard power, this slots in delightfully. And if you have a 2-cost 1/3 lifesteal body that draws you a card, you're more than happy with that. Obviously, this does not fit into every phone deck. You probably want to be either taking advantage of spells or the fact that they're discarding units or the fact that it's a multi-faction unit, but it's just such a strong value card. And of course, it's a great slot for Chalice. Yay! Let's buff this card with Chalice and make a 3/5 lifesteal and just clog up the board and make my opponents
Dark
miserable,
Chalice.
amongst other things. I just think this is it's not going to slot into every film deck, but it's just such a strong role play. It's going to be such a strong role player in both formats, especially with all the new Grenadin support from the draft pack updates alongside this set. I do expect Grenahan to see a lot of play because the floor on the card is still very, very acceptable. The floor on the card is great. The ceiling on the card is great. It might be multi-faction, which means obviously it restricts the decks you're playing it in, but it's just it will never be too bad of a card.
Roger that. All right, John.
Yeah, I'm a little lower on it, I think, than Stormguard, but I like, as far as the rating for Alex, like I'm high on this card. Like I think it's pretty good. I think the thing that I like most about it is that it's a Grenadin, and like there's a Grenadin deck of brew in an expedition that loves this card, right? Like this will always get a hit from like that Grenadin. Like anything doing Tesseract stuff has a bunch of damage based spells already, that kind of thing. So I'm most excited to play it there. I definitely don't think it just makes every film deck or anything like that. Not even an expedition. Well, maybe an expedition. But like at the end of the day, I'd have to do a deck check to find out for sure on that. But like it's the kind of card that like in Magic the Gathering I would not want to play a lot of times, except that it's a body. It's basically like a funny cantrip, right? Like you play it, it maybe gains you like 3 life, whatever, 4 life, as far as blocking some damage and gaining 1 with the lifesteal, and it replaces itself. So like, if your deck can play a cantrip, maybe you play this card. But like I said, I'm most interested in the Grenadin tribal synergy on this card in particular. Like the fact that it's a cheap Grenadin that replaces itself in that deck is very exciting to me. So yeah, I'm high on it.
All right, fair enough, guys. Well done. All right, last one, home stretch. Here we go. Grand Builder is a 3/3 mage for 4, no faction, but then summon, gain 3 influence in a faction of your choice. Entomb, gain 3 life. Alex, what's your assessment of Grand Builder?
Low.
All right. So let's make him sweat a little bit. Stormguard, take point on Grand Builder.
I actually think Grand Builder has a decent amount of potential. Yes, the body of a 4-cost 3/3 isn't fantastic, but given how many powerful payoffs there are for having a lot of influence, I think this could definitely see some play. Probably not in Throne, just because you have so many powerful options at 4. You have Farah, Rindra, Roland, Diana. The list goes on and on and on and on and on, which means that even though this is a very strong enabler, it probably doesn't make the cut there. However, in Expedition, where admittedly the influence fixing in that format is a little bit wanting, I could definitely see this really helping to I don't know, make those decks more consistent. Like being able to jump from say like 4 to 7 influence with just 1 card is absolutely ridiculous, with the Ascending Cycle, with Trickshot Ruffian, amongst other things. And I think whilst it's going to be frequently overlooked, and yes, there are some times where you just top deck this and you're very sad because it doesn't really do that much. I do believe that there is enough powerful payoffs in both Throne and Expedition, that this could definitely see something. That was a very long-winded way of saying, yay, more Kira support.
So
Duly noted.
I'm gonna disagree with Stormguard on this one all the way. I think it's pretty bad, and I don't think any of those decks you mentioned want to play this card. I don't think there's even remotely like a slot for this 4-drop 3/3. Like yuck. Like the one deck I attempted, like an Expedition, I got in there and I realized that the power to make this, like, you know, that the factionless power that reduces the cost of factionless cards, like it's not even an Expedition. So I just immediately scrapped the whole idea. Like, I'm not playing this for 4. Like, I'm just not doing it. I think it's bad. I think there's better enablers in both formats. In basically every deck. Like the only thing I could imagine is like mono faction going like heavy into shadow, you know, trying to do some like at any cost type thing. And like I said, like that, I don't think it's good enough for Expedition in that case. And I think in Throne we just have like way better options. And I don't know. I think the factionless deck trying to be more, you know, factionless is probably just better. No, I don't like this card at all, really.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad we disagreed on at least one.
Yeah.
So thank goodness for that.
Yeah, fair enough. But you know what's not disagreeable is Alex's assessment. That puts Alex at 15-6. So he actually murdered it. So way to go, Alex.
I had a lot of clues.
If it says draw card or not.
Like, no, like, when you hype the card up a little bit beforehand, or John making comments like, I hate almost all of these cards. So, like, yeah.
Fair enough.
But, yeah, no, that was fun, though.
All right. Well, I appreciate you bearing with me, man. So, final call. Are you going to get the campaign, yes or no?
I already
As
did.
a limited player. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Easy enough. All right,
I've been playing
Alex.
the Praxis deck a lot.
Nice. Okay. Well, shoot. I guess that pretty much. Well, just because we get it doesn't mean that players should get it. So, John, do you think the average person should pick up this bundle?
Like, let's say you've got all the other bundles, and you got gold. Then sure. Like, what's stopping you? It's free. And some of these cards are fun, but like, compared to other bundles and other things that if you have to choose, right? I don't think I would recommend this anywhere near the top of the list for either format. Just overall power level, I think is much lower than we've seen lately for most of these campaigns. And like, I don't think any one card in here is like a must-have. Like, I think, like none of these are like Kira's or anything like that power level. I've had plenty of fun with the set already, and I've done plenty of brewing, and I've got my $0 worth because I paid gold or whatever for mine in particular. So I mean, yeah, I like it, but if we're being real, right? Like, the power level here is a little lower, right? Do you guys agree with me, or?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, sending it over to Storm. Storm, what do you think? Should people get this? The average person pick up this campaign or not?
I think if you play a lot of most people in Eternal play casually, right? And I think you're fine not picking up this campaign, because I do think a lot of the power of this campaign comes from multi-faction cards. And the inherent weakness of multi-faction cards is obviously they tend to be so much more narrow, so they're not going to be able to fit into as many decks. The difference between like this campaign and Jack, whatever. I don't remember what campaign had Jack. The campaign was Jack and Intrusion, right? Those are ridiculously powerful multi-faction cards that require very little deck building cost and slot into a bunch of different archetypes. Here, we've already discussed even the strongest cards require a lot of deck building setup. They don't fit into every deck of those dual faction pairings. So I think, obviously, if you're playing competitive, competitive constructed, then I think this would make sense to pick up. But if you're definitely a more casual player and need to save your gold, there are still plenty of very, very powerful decks that you could build in both formats that do not require anything from this mini set.
Sweet. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. No constructed corner this week because I feel like the entire episode was a constructed corner. So thanks, John, for all your great insight. Appreciate it. And Alex bearing with me. You guys are great every week. Pretty sure you guys are the reason people tune into the show, unless it's my crazy shenanigans. Stormguard, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. Congratulations again to going deep in the Tuesday Night Eternal Invitational. I hope you see the same success in the upcoming opens. You too, John and Alex. I know you guys are playing too, so good luck to you guys as well.
Same
but yeah,
to you.
Yeah,
You're playing as well, right?
I mean,
top 64. Let's go.
Good luck out there to y'all and everybody else.
yeah, everyone else is playing this weekend. Good luck as well. But yeah, thank you, Storm. Where can people find you at? And if you want to plug your article, please go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you can find me lurking in this Discord and the FE Discord where I'm a mod, or sometimes in the Misplay Discord where I play Among Us with them far too often. You can also find me on Twitter at Stormguard798. I post I'll probably send the link to you, Jedi, if you want to put it in the show notes or something, to my blog where I put all of my, for at present, only Eternal articles that I also cross-post to Reddit. Yeah, if I mostly don't talk about Eternal because my takes are bad and I tend to ramble too much, but I will talk about pretty much everything else. Because
That's not how you plug yourself.
I have no shame. Okay. Yes. So yeah. That's
Sweet.
Excellent.
All right, guys. That's going to do it for us. Thank you once again for tuning in. Good luck this weekend, and we'll see you next week where we'll talk more Eternal. But until then, as always, happy gaming.
Good night.
Doodles.
Good luck in the open, everyone.